I'm in the swamp right now and I'm trying to get out of the swamp. And that's the swamp in the business sense, specifically with the law firm. Right now we're at something like $1.5 million in annualized revenue, which is a pretty tough position to be in. I mean, business is always tough, but it's tough in that it's a ton of work to do. It's a lot to maintain with a pretty small team, but we don't really have the resources to come in and make gigantic moves or bring in super heavy hitters who can really help us to get out of that swamp. So you just kind of have to brute force your way through a lot of it. So it's really tough. I really like how Alex Hormozi has articulated this in some of his videos where he talks about this whole concept of the swamp. But it's a really good way to put it, in that it's very hard to get through and you just gotta sort of force your way through it to get to the other side. I'm curious how long it will take to get out of this stage so that we have more resources to throw at things and we're not as reliant on any one individual person in the business to keep things moving, so that we have some redundancies and could be that much stronger should something happen in a given week. Someone's out for a little while and we're not in big trouble because we have more resiliency just as an entire organization. And in my case, it's made a little bit more difficult by the fact that I have a bunch of debt that was used to fund previous business losses, not really with the law firm as much as the other business, the steam cleaning business that I had bought and recently sold. That was not a fun experience by any means, but it really has left some damage that needs to be repaired, while at the same time we're trying to get through the swamp. So it's a bit of a tricky balancing act to get through, but as long as we make a little bit of progress each month, getting a little bit better, then we should be able to get through all of this in due time. And then it'll be on to the next challenge, or really set of challenges at that next level. In the meantime, there's a ton of work to do to try and keep clients happy, so we have to focus on that. And by focusing on that, we learn how to make the service that much better. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into this month's net worth numbers. As a reminder, last month our net worth was right around $122,000. As always, let's start with the good stuff, the assets. A lot of the cash from last month was rolled into paying off some debt, which I'll get into in a moment. But there's not a whole lot to report on the asset side of things this time around. I did tick up the balance on one of the properties here, since I actually think it's quite a bit lower than what the actual market value would be. But I was taking a look at some of the property values around it. I hadn't done that in quite some time. And it looks like it's probably potentially worth quite a bit more than this. So I ticked it up a little bit, which also makes me feel better because number go up. And I am thinking at least somewhat about selling one or both of my rental properties, because it's a way to try and, one, just reduce the number of headaches and distractions while I'm focusing on other things, and also to try and pay off some debt with whatever equity might be there. I don't know if I actually will do that, but it is something that's on the table. It always has been, but it's definitely not something I want to do quite at this time, but I could change my mind on that pretty soon. But in total, that leaves me with about $1.21 million in assets. And now on to liabilities. Where I made the most progress this month was on the credit card side of things. If we head on over to the debt paydown view, we can see some of that. So you'll see that I paid off a few grand in credit cards, which was great, since that is some higher interest stuff with a lot of these promos ending. So I wanted to start chipping away at some of these to get the need balances down. And the goal is to completely pay off the remainder of my credit card debt over the summer, which would be a huge relief, since we'd have not only some credit balance available if we actually needed it in an emergency, but then we wouldn't be paying all that interest and all those payments in the meantime, which could be used for literally anything else. And meanwhile, we're paying off all of these other loans too, mostly with minimum payments. Some of them are a bit above whatever the minimum payment would be to try and accelerate them a bit, and just make sure that I'm always making progress on this debt pay down. So we were able to pay off over 10 grand in debt over the last month, which brings our annual total pay down up to 26,000 or so, but that doesn't include the well over $10,000 in other debt that I paid off on both the Duffley Law side and on the cleaning business side, because those had credit card balances built in there. So we paid a significant chunk of those balances down too, since in my case that's actually reflected on the asset side in the way I have things organized here. But in the coming months, I'd love to knock out all of those credit cards and at least a couple of the personal loans. It would take a lot of pressure off to do that. But in total, that leaves me with around $1.08 million in liabilities, which means our net worth has increased up to $129,000, which is an increase of nearly $7,000 from last month. Our debt ratio has decreased down to 89.34%, and our passive income, at least theoretically, remains at $800 per month.
On paper.
Because seemingly all of the cash flow over the last however many months has been going into replenishing reserves on the property side, as well as for maintenance and repairs and things that have come up over that time. But in theory, it's at $800 a month. So a pretty pedestrian month compared to the last few, and that's largely because I did not try to take out a bunch of cash from the law firm, since I want to try and build up some reserves over there so that we have some cash ready to go in the event that we have a rough month or two, or that we have some big expenses that come up, or if we want to try and make an investment into more talent or into systems or whatever it might be. So I want to try and leave more cash in the business as much as I can. Of course, keeping in mind that we do have to take out a good chunk to pay off debts to alleviate the risk over there. And as long as we make enough money to pay for our expenses and then all of the debt payments, we'll at least be making progress on that front, since the debts will continue to get paid down. But the goal, of course, is to pay them down much faster than that. And thankfully, we're off to a good start with that over the past few months this year. If we can build up some pretty serious reserves at the law firm, that'll not only make the business more resilient, but it'll make it easier to take out some bigger distributions in the future to pay down debts with bigger swings, basically, and really get the acceleration going there to try and pay it down much faster than we have been. But all of that requires the business to perform well and continue to get better, which is a never-ending challenge. But I'm confident in our team's ability to continue getting better and to push through the swamp. It'll require a lot of effort and a lot of brute force, but it's nothing that can't be done. Otherwise, thanks for watching. If you're interested in following along, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, because I put a new one of these episodes out every single month. Wishing you all the best, and I'll see you in the next one.
The horse is prepared for battle, but victory comes from the Lord. Day by day, one play at a time. That's the message.